Hello. Today we're going to talk about arithmetic sequences. So, an arithmetic sequence is a sequence in which each term differs from the previous one by a or by the same fixed amount. Okay? We call this number, the same fixed amount, the common difference. Right? So now let's look at the general term formula. So the general term formula states that u sub n, which is the value of the nth term, is going to be equal to u sub 1, which is the value of the first term, plus n minus 1 times d, which is the common difference. So d is the common difference. Okay? N is the term number that you're looking at. All right? So let's look at our examples. It says consider the sequence 4, 11, 18, 25, and 32 continuing on. It says show that the sequence is arithmetic. So remember, if you are an arithmetic sequence, you have to have a common difference. So the word difference means to subtract. So we're going to subtract to see if we get the same numbers. We're going to take two consecutive numbers at a time. So if we do 11 minus 4, we end up with 7. If we do 18 minus 11, we end up with 7. If we do 25 minus 18, we end up with 7. And if we do 32 minus 25, we also end up with 7. So here I could say that yes, this is arithmetic. We have a common difference of 7. Okay. So now let's look at B. It says write a general term, write a formula for the general term. So we know u sub n will stay just like it is. So we will have u sub n is equal to the first term, which is 4, plus n minus 1, because we don't know what n is. And it's going to be times our common difference, which is going to be 7. So once I do this, I can then simplify it if I choose to. So u sub n is equal to 4 plus 7n minus 7. And then combine like terms, u sub n will be equal to 7n minus 3. So I don't care whether you write it like the top one or the bottom one. It's the same thing. So now it says, what is the 100th term of the sequence? So that means that we want to find u sub 100, and that is going to be equal to 4 plus 100 minus 1 times 7. And if we do 4 plus 100 minus 1 times 7, we end up with 697. So that is the 100th term of the sequence. All right. Now, if you wanted to, you could have used the 7n minus 3 one, and you could do 7 times 100 minus 3 using that formula, and you would get the same answer. All right. So part D says, are the following numbers terms of the sequence? So we're trying to figure out these numbers are terms of the sequence. That means if we plug in these term numbers or the value of these terms, we should be able to figure out what term number it is in line. So if I have 886, that'll become my u sub n. So I know that the value of my nth term is going to be 886, and that is going to be equal to 7n minus 3. I'm using the simplified form because I'm going to have to solve this equation, and it's going to have to be simplified anyway. So then I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So there's going to be 889 is equal to 7n. And then if I do 889 divided by 7, I end up with 127 as my n. So yes, 886 is in the sequence. And then we know it is going to be the 127th number. All right, so it is in that sequence. So the answer is yes. All right, so next we have 2591. So we're going to have the value of my nth term is 2,591. That is going to be equal to 7n minus 3. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides, which is going to be 2594 equals 7n. And then I have to take 2594 and divide it by 7. And I end up getting 370.57. That is my value of n. And I cannot have part of a number or part of a term. It has to be a whole number. So I know that my answer is no. This 2,591 does not lie in that list of numbers. All right. So now let's look at our other examples. So number 2, it says find k given that 4k plus 2, k, and -5 are consecutive back-to-back terms of an arithmetic sequence. So an arithmetic sequence means that you have to have a common difference. So that means if I subtract each pair of these numbers back to back, I should get the same thing. So I'm going to set up my equation. I'm going to do the second term k minus the first term, which is 4k plus 2. Those parentheses are important, so be careful. Equals -5 minus k. That is going to be my equation. So I'm going to distribute, which means that I have k minus 4k minus 2. That's going to be equal to -5 minus k. Once I do that, I am going to subtract. I'm going to, excuse me, combine like terms on the left-hand side, which means that I'm going to get -3k minus 2 is equal to -5 minus k. And then I am going to add k to both sides, and I'm going to add 2 to both sides so I can separate my variable terms and my constant terms. So that's going to give me -2k is equal to a -3, and then I'm going to divide both sides by -2, and that will tell me that k is 3/2. So that is the value of k here. So now if you want to check to make sure that you're right, you could do 4 times 3/2 plus 2, and that gives you 8. Okay, and then you have 8, and then you have k by itself is 3/2. So if I do 3/2 subtract 8, I get -6.5. And if I do -5 minus 3/2, make sure I put that in parentheses, I will get -6.52. So I know that that k value was right. When I plug it in, I have the same common difference. All right. So number 3, it says find the general term for an arithmetic sequence with u sub 4 being equal to 9 and u sub 9 being equal to -16. So what I do is I have to remember the general term is u sub n is equal to u sub 1 plus n minus 1 times your common difference. So I'm going to write 2 equations. All right. It tells me that we have u sub 4 is equal to 9. So I can have u sub 4 is equal to u sub 1 plus n minus 1 times my common difference. And in this case, the n will have to be 4 because we're talking about u sub 4. We also know that instead of writing u sub 4, we can actually just put 9 because it says u sub 4 is 9. All right. So the next one, we're going to write an equation for the next one, which is u sub 9 is equal to -16. So once again, I can have u sub 9 is equal to u sub 1 plus 9 minus 1 times the common difference. And remember, u sub 9 can be interchanged or substituted, can be taken out and substituted in for -16. So here are my 2 equations. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite these 2 equations and simplify them. So that's going to be 9 equals u sub 1 plus 3 times d, and this is going to be negative 16 is equal to u sub 1 plus 8 times d. So now I'm going to solve this system of equations. I'm going to solve this system by using elimination. And if I use elimination, that means I could subtract these two equations because I know my u1s will cancel. So 9 subtract negative 16 is a positive 25, and that will be equal to 3d minus 8d, which is a negative 5d. And we know that if we were to divide both sides by negative 5, if we were to divide both sides by negative 5, we would end up getting that negative 5 is equal to d. And because I know that negative 5 is equal to d, I can take in negative 5 and I can substitute it in for d either in the top or bottom equation. I'm going to do the top. So that means 9 is equal to u sub 1 plus 3 times negative 5, which means that we have 9 is equal to u sub 1 minus 15, and then we will have to add 15 to both sides, which will give us 24 is equal to u sub 1. So our general equation will be u sub n is equal to 24 plus n minus 1 times negative 5. Okay, so that will be our general term or our nth term. Okay, now if you wanted to, you could have solved that system of equations using the PolySimo 2 app. So if you wanted to, what you could have done is you could have went to apps, went to PolySimo 2, used the simultaneous equation solver. We have two equations, two unknowns. But instead of using U1 and D, we could have actually used these as X and Y. So your system of equations, for instance, for the one that I'm highlighting here in yellow, that would have been 9 is equal to X plus 3Y. And the second one that I'm highlighting here would have been negative 16 is equal to X plus 8Y. Once you put that system in, you could solve it and you would have gotten that 24 would have been your U1 and negative 5 would have been your common difference. So you could have solved that system in the calculator instead of by hand as well. All right. So now let's look at number 4. It says insert 3 numbers so that all 5 numbers are in an arithmetic sequence. So that means if I have 4, I want to put 3 more numbers in between and end up with 13 so that I can have an arithmetic sequence. An arithmetic sequence means that you are adding or subtracting the same amount each time you have a common difference. So I'm going to say that 4 plus D plus D plus another D plus another D, that will equal 13. And I can use that to make an equation. So I start off with 4 and I add 4 times D because I add D 4 times, and it's going to equal to a 13. All right. Once I do that, then I can just solve this equation. So I would subtract 4 on both sides, which would give me 4d is equal to 9, and then divide both sides by 4, which would give me 9 over 4. Okay, that gives me 9 over 4. So that is my common difference. So let's see if it works. If I do plus 4 plus 9 over 4, I get 25 over 4. So that means that my other numbers is going to be 25 over 4. Then I'm going to add 9 over 4 again, and I end up getting 17 over 2. And then I'm going to add 9 over 4 again, and I end up getting 43 over 4. And then I'm going to add 9 over 4 again, which gives me the 13. So I know that my 3 numbers are going to be 25 over 4, 17 over 2, and 43 over 4. So those are my 3 numbers there. Okay, so now let's look at number 5. So number 5 is talking about Chelsea has been losing weight at a consistent rate since she began her new fitness plan. After her first week, she weighed in at 223.4 pounds. Each week after that, she loses 1.6 pounds per week. Find her weight after 1, 2, and 3 weeks. So we know week 1, she weighed 223.4 pounds. So we're going to take 223.4 and we're going to subtract the 1.6 pounds that she loses every week, which means on week 2, she is going to be at 221.8 pounds, which then for week 3, she's going to subtract 1.6 more pounds. That's going to give her 220.2 pounds. All right. So now it says show that the weight after n weeks forms an arithmetic sequence. Remember, if you have an arithmetic sequence, you're going to have a same common difference. And they have already said that we have the common difference. They told us that in the problem. It says that she loses 1.6 pounds per week. So I know that from that, her common difference, if I lose 1.6 pounds per week, I know that my common difference is going to be a negative 1.6 because we're going to be subtracting 1.6 every time. So that's the common difference. That's how I know it's arithmetic. If it does not have a common difference, it is not arithmetic, right? So part C says, find out how much she weighs after 4 months. So they said, assume that there are 4 weeks in a month. So remember, it says in the problem that this is talking about each week. So U sub n is saying the how much she weighs after a certain amount of weeks. So what I have to do here is I have to write my general equation. So that's going to be U sub n is equal to how much she weighed the first week, which is 223.4, plus we would have n minus 1 times negative 1.6 for the common difference. So I will plug in 16 here. So U sub 16 will be equal to 223.4 plus 16 minus 1 times negative 1.6. And if I put that in a calculator, I will end up getting that she will end up weighing 199.4 pounds. That's how much she will be weighing after her 4 months or 16 weeks. So that's how much she will weigh. All right. Now the last part, it says, when does Chelsea reach 185 pounds? So basically, I need to know what my N is. I know what my U sub N is. So if I try to figure out will she be when will she be 185 pounds, that means that I'm going to have 185 for my U sub N, and that's going to be equal to my 223.4 plus my N minus 1 times my common difference of a negative 1.6. So I will have to simplify the right hand side. So that's going to be 185 is equal to 223.4. Slide this over a little bit. And then that's going to be n times negative 1.6 is negative 1.6 n, and negative 1 times negative 1.6 is a positive 1.6, right? So then I would combine like terms. 223.4 plus 1.6 gives me 225. So 185 is equal to negative 1.6 n plus 225. I will have to subtract 225 from 185, and that will give me negative 40 is equal to negative 1.6 n, and then divide negative 40 by negative 1.6, and I will end up getting 25 is equal to n. So it's going to take her 25 weeks for her to weigh 185 pounds. All right. And that will be your answer for D. So if you have any questions, please reach out and ask your teacher. Have a great day.